Previously on the Langille Show. Anyway, it looks something like that. I chose to jump off the tractor. The tractor keeps going, so I'm flying down the gun going, I didn't mean to! It goes into the garden, through Dad's potato patch, over where the carrots are, and then goes down into the ditch. Welcome to episode number 73, part 2 of the Langille Show. My name is Brian Langille, and I'm going to skip the whole intro this time because you guys already know what this whole topic is about, so I'm going to save us about 3 minutes of an intro and just get into part 2 of the story. If you remember back to part 1 of this story, when I was 8, maybe 10 years old, I took a lawn tractor and drove it not only across the yard, but over some pear trees, through some potato plants, through the garden, over some carrots, past a tree and into a ditch. Not that bad of an accomplishment for a 10-year-old, but not something that I really want to put on a resume either. You'd think that in years beyond that I would, avoid mistakes like that. That wouldn't happen again, and my history with a lawn tractor would end up being a happy one. No. My dad eventually got rid of the Alice Chalmers Sherman tank. That thing was indestructible. You couldn't hurt that thing. It just became an issue where, parts wear out, and it was old enough that you couldn't replace parts, so Dad opted out of it. Rest in peace, friendly lawn tractor. Anyway, so he ended up going out and buying himself a new one. Now, my dad took his lawn tractors very seriously. I guess with a yard the size of my dad's, I guess that was kind of a prerequisite. But he went out and bought himself a $7,000 8-speed lawn tractor. Now, I don't know who needs 8 speeds for a lawn tractor. I mean, I figure 1 is good. You just mow. No. We had to have 8 speeds on this thing. So, anyway, Dad was all proud of it. He loved this thing. It was the greatest thing ever. Now, I'm 18-ish at this point, I think, something like that. And really, a lot of things have changed in my life since I was 10. My preference in music had changed. My preference in TV shows had changed. My sexual preference had changed. Well, wait, no, I shouldn't say my sexual preference changed. It was just more like when I was 10, girls had cooties. When I was 18, girls had boobies. It was a totally different experience. What? Anyway, yeah, so as you can tell, things had changed in the life of Langille. So my dad bought this lawn tractor and then ended up going to British Columbia for a conference. So he hadn't actually used the tractor yet. He got it home and then hadn't actually used it. And he said, Brian, while I'm gone, I need you to mow the lawn. I was like, all right. He goes, well, whatever you do, mow the far side of the lawn next to the ditch with a push mower. Do not take the lawn tractor over there. I just have experiences of you putting it in the ditch, so just avoid it. And I said, Dad, that was like 10 years ago. I'm cool. He goes, Brian, push mower. I'm like, sure. So the day comes that I get to mow the lawn, and I go out and I mow my rectangle, and I do it perfect. There's no going through a garden over trees, yada, yada, yada. Things are cool. And then there's the side piece of the yard next to the ditch. And I get flashbacks in my head of my dad saying, it was kind of like the whole Obi-Wan Kenobi Luke Skywalker thing. And I was like, nothing's real in Star Wars. So I take the tractor and I start doing the side of it. And it was going well. I was going down through it only takes a strip and a half, right? So I mow it once, turn around, come back up halfway through, and it would be done. It would save me so much time. So I'm mowing along and things are fine, and all of a sudden I notice the fact the tractor is slipping. So the grass is a little bit wet and the rubber tires don't really, there's a slight angle, by the way. So I feel the tractor going. So I turn the wheel to try to get myself back on track, and of course that creates it like a sled. It just keeps dropping. So here I am trying to keep this thing in, and I realize it's going over the side, and I'm like, oh, and yeah, so I jump off the tractor. I mean, fight or flight, right? I mean, it's the thing to do. You jump off the tractor. So luckily, because of that sensor in the seat that decides, fat ass isn't on it anymore, the tractor loses all its power, which was fine, but it still falls into the ditch. Yeah, so trust me, that's not the messed up part. So I look down into the ditch, and here's this lawn tractor, and I'm like, oh my god, how am I going to get this out of here? So I go and I shut the key off, despite the fact there's no engine running on it, and I try to put it back. It's on its side, by the way. I try to put it back on its wheels, and I can't move the tractor. Now, I know it weighs a lot, but, I can't move it. I look down, and on the right-hand side of the tractor, it's embedded in the ditch. Like, it's stuck in there. So my brother comes out, and he goes, Brian, what are you doing? I'm like, the tractor's in the ditch. And he goes, no, it's not. I'm like, yeah, it is. So he comes over and he looks at it, and after he finishes laughing profusely, he's like, we got to get that out of there. I'm like, yeah, I know. So the two of us are trying to get the tractor back up on its wheels so we can push it up out of the ditch. Thing ain't moving. We can't even get it out of the ditch, or out of the dirt. We look down, and the side of the mower is embedded, like it's impacted into the ditch. This thing fell with a ton of weight on it, and bang, like we can't even move it. So we end up doing what most normal people wouldn't do, beyond panicking, of course, is we phone a tow truck to get the tractor out of the ditch. So we phone the tow truck company, and we're like, yeah, you guys got to come, and we've got to get a tractor out of the ditch. So they come, and they open the door, and they look at it, and they just laugh. They're like, how the did you do this? And I'm like, you don't need to swear. Things are cool. Just help us get it out of the ditch. So they tow it out of the ditch, and when they do, between the impact of hitting the ditch and towing it back out where it was stuck, they twist the frame. So now we get the tractor back up on the lawn, and the frame is twisted. It's a complete disaster. And keeping in mind, my dad has never driven this, never even got a chance to use it, and now I basically destroyed it. So we call the place where we got the tractor and get them to come pick it up on a flatbed and take it back, see if they can do anything to fix it. Meanwhile, my dad phones from BC, and he goes, how's everything going in Nova Scotia? I'm like, good, good. He's like, how'd the lawn mowing go? I'm like, great. How are things in BC, Dad? What's the tourism like? So I tried to avoid the whole thing. I survived that phone call. That was cool. But later on, I got a phone call back from the place where we bought the tractor, and they said that they're not going to be able to fix the frame. That's going to be twisted for life. They can try to balance it as much as they want, but overall, it's always going to have collateral damage to it. It's kind of like when a car is written off. No matter how much you fix it, it's still a written off car. Same idea. So I said, okay, so what are we talking with damages? And they're like, we're talking $1,500 to $1,700. What? Yeah, $1,500 to $1,700. So when my dad phoned the second time and asked if things were going to Nova Scotia, like a couple days later, I had no choice but to tell him that things are good, but don't bother bringing back any shirts or trinkets from BC. We're going to need that money because, yeah, I've wrecked the lawn tractor. Needless to say, my dad went nuclear, and I mean, I got to admit, as a parent now, I understand this. I would go nuclear as well, but luckily he was on the other side of the country, 4 time zones away when that happened, because had he been home, yeah, my ears would still be ringing. Anyway, yeah, so that is part 2 of Mowin Ain't Easy. My name is Brian Langille. Thank you for watching. You can check this show out at thelangilleshow.com and youtube.com. You can follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Langille, and yeah, if you have kids and you want them to mow, I recommend using a push mower. And if you want me to come over and do lawn care, I hope you have insurance. Take care.